Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're back in the workshop, which is a very nice feeling. The old leather armchair is still here, although we're still a little bit damp, and it's just nice to be back. What I thought today I'd like to just make a very quick explanation as to why it is that I don't do tutorials and how to carve type videos. Now, the reason for this is quite simply that I just don't feel qualified enough to be able to teach, and I do that a little bit, but the method that I use is more working with and demonstrating how I go about it, rather than saying to somebody, look, this is the way to do it, this is the way to hold the chisel, this is the way, the right angles, and etc. etc. It's not easy to put your ideas and what you want to achieve out there so that other people may pick up how to, and to put it bluntly, may inspire somebody to have a go. The other thing that I think people have to really understand is that success or failure is purely in the eyes of the beholder. I mean, you've only got to visit a modern art gallery or a studio, and you'll see such a variety of work, some that you instinctively like and think, oh, yeah, that is really beautiful. And there are others that you say, well, I just don't understand. It's not for me. So all art and all craft is really the expression of the artist or the craftsman or whatever, and it's an indulgence, it's a self-indulgence, and if other people like it and appreciate what you're doing, that's wonderful. But if they don't, it's not important. And don't misunderstand me, those people that make very pleasant and like comments against some of my work, I'm not going to pretend that isn't flattering, and you enjoy the fact that you may have imparted something to somebody else that you wanted to express. But what you must never, and this is important, I think, for any craftsman, artist, or just in life in general, you can't please everyone. You'll never achieve exactly what you set out to do, because that's the nature of crafting, that you're in a continual learning process and you're starting to see different ways to achieve what you want to achieve. Now, I do watch, and I really do appreciate an awful lot of people who put their carving and their techniques and their work out on YouTube, and I watch it, and I do pick up tips, and I do look at things, and I think, well, maybe I could try that. That looks as though it's an easier way to achieve what I want to do, rather than, oh, this is the way it's got to be done, because there are many occasions when I look at something and I think, well, the scruffy old way I did it, it looks the way I want it. And I think that's the key. It looks the way I want it to be. And if you're achieving that, then it's worth the effort, and it's worth trying. Sometimes it can be disappointing. Sometimes it can be absolute joy when something that you see, you seem to express it in another medium, which is, in my case, most often wood. No more prattling on. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to carry on carving a piece of fruit wood. I believe it may be apple. It's very hard. It's been laying around in a pal's wood area for a long time, and I thought it was worthwhile having a go at one of my personal wood spirits, the sort of guy that I think is living in this wood. And for those of you who think that my technique is awful, please just bear in mind that this is a compromise. This is the way that I'm finding I can use the chisels and still start to achieve some of the things that I want. Okay, as I've already said, and then immediately started banging on about other things, time to get the chips flying. Well, here he is. He's come on a little bit. I think we've pretty well got him roughed out now. All the usual bits and pieces. He's going to have a nice flowing beard. We've put some eyes in now, and he's going to have some leaves around the top of the hair, and I might bring some of the leaves down into the beard line. I don't know. Let's just see how he comes along. I'm now going to start bringing in some smaller chisels. This is because people do ask. This is a number 10, and it's a 3. And I just now want to start smoothing out some of the rougher cuts to try and give me a smoother plane to actually work on. Obviously, the sharper the chisel, and I can't stress this enough, the sharper the chisel, the easier it is, particularly when you're dealing with some pretty hard wood. I need to just tighten him down in his vise here. I'm using a Parrot vise. He's got a rather convenient spur on the back of the log that is gripping quite nicely. I hope I haven't tilted him out of the camera. It's always difficult to try and, as it were, imagine how you're watching this. And I just need to just start now gently taking out some of the straight lines. You know what we always say, that in nature straight lines don't really exist. Everybody's screaming, oh yes they do. But often what we think of straight lines are just optical illusions. Now you may be noticing that I'm using the chisel on both sides. This is one of the reasons when I'm sharpening I do like to just put just a tiny little edge on the inside, because I do find it very useful then when you need to round off, but you don't want to take off large amounts of wood. And I find this, I'm just going to swivel it around a little bit so you can still see. It's very bright here today, which is quite a change, particularly in West Wales. So I'm enjoying the light, but I'm not sure that it's going to be the best thing for the camera. One of the things that I have learned, it's very easy to try and force something when you're using the wrong size of chisel, and that's probably my justification to the family why I have such a selection of chisels. Having said that, you can work with some very basic shaped chisels and achieve a great deal just by compromising a little bit on technique, maybe. A lot of people say, well, get it all rough, don't worry too much about detail. The problem with that, I find, is that you tend to move too fast, and you've got to a stage where it's difficult actually to, well, because you've taken off maybe too much wood, to then impart detail as much as you would like. He seems quite a cheerful chap. Maybe he knows that spring is sprung and better weather, so they say, is just round the corner. Now here's a step that I want to take down to blend the moustache into the natural flow. Now, I don't know if you noticed then, but quite a flake came off because I was pushing it across the grain rather than flowing with it. And as with all carving, you have to think in terms of, say, when you start practicing, one of the first things you'll carve is a donut, and you learn then to carve downhill and then uphill according to the grain, and that avoids what's just happened, that big flake out. But there used to be a guy who I used to watch who did lots of painting in quite a distinctive style, mostly fir trees in Alaska. I think he was called Bob Ross, and he always qualified everything with we don't have mistakes, we have happy accidents. And that applies a lot to my carving, I have to say. After the, I would say, the excitement of roughing out, and that is exciting because, faces suddenly leap out at you, out of the wood, with some big sweeping strokes, and yeah, that can be quite satisfying to give it a good old whack, and it works. The only problem, of course, is that when you come on to the detail, you've got to then change your feelings, change your style, I suppose, and you start looking for small changes that can bring out expression and detail. Now, I think you can hear by the way I'm talking that tuition for me is really just working along with somebody, and maybe they pick up your idea and technique of achieving what it is you want, rather than me saying, well, you've always got to do this and you've always got to do that. Now, I am leaving some area here because I think what I need, when I look at him more in that direction, we need a bit of shadow under here. You can see that that is in shadow with the light coming from that side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undercut that slightly, and to do that I think I'm going to go down to a little small, not totally small, but that actually I think is says he checking, it's a number 9 and it's a 7, and I'm just going to stroke that to round off under this crease between the moustache and the beard line. I need to reposition that. When I get further along, I'm probably going to put what they call a carver's screw in the bottom here and mount him more upright, but laying him back like this, it does give me a little bit more purchase without Now for the actual underscoring, I'll probably use a straighter or smaller, maybe even a V-gouge, to just create a hard line, sketch it in so you can see into this area here. But what I'm trying to do is, if you compare him to this side, where it's just roughed and left with wood to move, I hope you're starting to see that I'm looking at some grain in here, which is going to give me a nice swirly effect. And what I want is this to be quite organic. I want it to be flowing rather than angular look. I'm just going to under this corner a little bit, and you've got to be confident with turning the chisel. I do see a lot of people, when they set out with chisels, they're metal, they're rigid, they're straight lines, and they think in terms of straight lines, and as a consequence, that can that can stunt. You tend to think in terms of going forward, up, and around, rather than allowing the chisel to flow and create a nice peel, a nice line, which all adds to the natural look. Now I'm going to go back and just round that off round here a little bit. I think we've already mentioned the fishtail gouges, which are very, well, I like them a lot, I use them a lot. This is a 3F, F indicating it's a fishtail, like that, and 16 being its size. And I'm just going to use this again to help with the flow. And then we're coming on the inside, so we're just going to round that, following that little gouge that I put in there. Now, as this bevel on the chisel seems to fit this very nicely, I am going to just tap it in slightly to start a little bit of an underscore. Undercut rather than score. Up at the top here to achieve a little bit more. Now, because of, that's probably just a little wide for carrying around, so I'll search out my other bit less of a another fishtail, less of a sweep, and I can just bring that in. Just need to round that a little bit. I've got a sharp edge there. Afford to be a bit more abrupt here because I want the lip to appear as though it's running under the moustache line. And I'm going to round the lip into it, as it were. I'll just take a little bit of sand here to clean up that underscore. And I see that the light has made this extremely bright, and maybe you've missed some of the detail. What I was trying to do, as I said, is to try and put a little bit of a shadow line under the moustache here and smooth it out. So I'm just finishing off this. I've put him at a slightly steeper angle so he's not sun, not too much that we're used to in Wales. But I hope then you'll get a clearer picture of how I'm just undercutting this a little bit using this fishtail gouge to just create a little bit of shadow underneath here. To make this clearer. Now, I may decide to texture this quite a lot, and this smoother area may be lost in perception by the flow of the moustache. But if it's there, it's something which I don't have to come back to and recreate. Well, I think that does, you can actually see how the shadow comes in as you go along there. And when I am with folks and they ask, how can I just make this look a little bit more realistic? And often I find myself saying to them, well, just create a little bit of a shadow there. And then somebody who's looking at it, their eye will create the illusion that it's deeper or that it's more pronounced, when in fact it probably isn't. Just go back to that little U gouge and just smooth that up a little bit. No, I need to come down a size on that. Fortunately, this is a number 4, sorry, a number 11, but a 4. The 11 is referring, I believe, to the actual sweep. And the 4 is a size definition, more like the... Now this one is not the sharpest tool in the box, and so consequently it's roughing up a little bit. So before I do much else, I shall give this some attention, because the sharper the tool, the easier it is to work with. And there's obviously a little bit here that it's digging in. It's okay on the upper edges, it's just on this part. Okay, well, he's dropped out of his vice. Just making sure you've got enough surface area to grip him. And I'm also conscious that, you see, as soon as I've leant him back, the light here is getting in the way. Okay, so I think I'll call it quits there for you, and then maybe some groove lines and things like that. I've worked some of the what I call knocks out, the chisel marks, and it's giving me a good insight into how the grain is going to show when I put some light stain on it to accentuate the grain. And I can see some areas now where I'm going to have to dig out my carving knives and really start working on some fine detail to take out these marks, etc. But I think you can see that roughing is exciting. The first steps of any detailing are not just only hard work, but it's small work, and nothing moves that quickly, and you've got to constantly make sure that your chisels are really stropped up and are going to do the job for you and not leave scratches, etc. So this probably is as far as I'm going to go here for the time being. I'm probably going to now start working on bringing in this area into slightly more detail before I finish. If you go piecemeal, i.e. if you go too far in one area, it becomes then really a difficult task to, as it were, ensure that the same degree of detail and the same element of realism, if that's what you're looking for, creeps in. And unless you've got plenty of wood to work with, if you have those lucky happy accidents, then you've got some material to even things out one side or the other. But I hope it shows up a bit better light-wise. If I don't know if that's still in camera, yeah, I hope so. But you can see that that has got now an element of depth and realism, which possibly isn't. No, you probably can't see. I'm just trying to see if in the camera, but this is the roughed out area, and you're now giving it character. I think that's the phrase I like to use. Okay, well, I'm going to call it a day now, feeling a bit stiff by the time I put the chisels away, etc. And then we'll come back and have a look at him another day.